You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the show. This week, I have my buddy Taylor Larson from Mixwave returning to the program. Back when he first came on, Mixwave was a brand new company. They had just released their first guitar-related stuff. That was the Benson plugin that I have grown to very much love and was admittedly the first time I got really, truly excited by a digital amplifier. And I've since kind of went off the deep end a little bit with that stuff. So yeah, it's his fault, I guess. Yeah, it's his fault. I've been doing so much more in the digital realm these days, and I'll never turn my back on analog. I never, ever will give up my true amps, but man, I love what is possible these days, especially when you use products like the Mixwave stuff, which is super, super, super high quality. And no, they're not sponsoring this episode. I truly love this stuff. It's really great, and Taylor is a really cool dude. So with all that, let's get into the episode already. Let's do it. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and I have returning one of my favorite dudes, Taylor Larson from Mixwave. What's going on, buddy?
Not much. A lot of chaos. A lot of busyness. A lot of I don't know. Can't even think.
So many things have happened. I mean, I don't even remember how it feels like it wasn't that long ago. But when I take a couple steps back and really think about it, it's like, wow, it's actually quite a while ago that we recorded. It's almost been like 2 years or so. Is that right?
I mean, it was before we launched the Benson Mixwave.
Oh, wow. That's been a while then.
And that was our first amp ever.
Yeah. You'd had some drums, but this is the first amp. And now you've got Mike Stringer one. There's some more stuff coming. I mean, you tell me what's going on. What is going on in the world of Mixwave since that first amp launch? Like, what has happened? What's the storyline here?
So the big thing is we're getting into the mixing stuff. So that's coming in the next couple weeks to a month, I would say. I'm just going to go ahead and break it right here with you. The next thing we're putting out is going to be Coil Audio. It's the company that builds like the most insane microphone preamps. They're like built to like 1930 military specification with like the craziest new old stock parts, and they sound absolutely massive. And we thought, how do we turn that into a plugin so I can have that massive sound in my computer?
Right.
And we did it, and we're working with them now to just kind of button a couple things up, but that's going to be the next thing. And we're really kind of amped to get into the mixing world. For me personally, I started this for that purpose. I wanted to do the mixing stuff, and the drum stuff and the guitar stuff is cool because it's a lot of friends that we've worked with. And it was something that was kind of easy to start at the beginning. But the mixing is kind of where I've always wanted to be. And so we're coming out of the gate with that. And then we have probably about 7 other things mix-wise in the pipeline. And as far as guitars and drums, we still have tons of that stuff. Like, we have an insane pedal company that we're doing their entire catalog, and that's going to be soon, hopefully this year. And we have a lot of other artists that we're just finishing up now. So there's probably about 20 guitar products set in the pipeline.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we have all that stuff moving. and then we have the drum stuff moving, but I'm really excited to getting into the mix world because that's kind of my world. That's, those are the things that I personally would buy.
Mm-hmm. I have to assume that starting where you guys did, I know we talked about how much time went into doing the Benson plugin, which is by far my most used like non-mixing plugin by a landslide. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
So the you like to go from where you started to like, oh, we've got like 20 guitar products coming out. I have to imagine that's partially as a result of everything you learned while doing that first one, and was able to like speed this process up significantly, because you went from like 0 to 100 seemingly really fast, but you don't do that without some baby steps first.
Oh yeah. I mean, the Benson thing is really what kind of defined our company because of how much of a stickler he is in how he's not really a digital mind. So to impress him is a tough feat. And that's kind of like, if we can do that, because the thing is like the schematic is pretty simple with him. And it's almost the same parallel with Coil. Like, to me, the Coil mixing plugin is literally the Benson of mixing plugins. It's a very simple schematic, but it relies a lot on the parts you use. And like, those parts impart like a harmonic sound, and like that's what makes it what it is. So I feel like that's kind of where our company shines. Like a lot of these other companies, they do like the Waves Q clone thing, or like we call it gray or black box modeling, where they're just running sine sweeps through things. Our company does everything component level, and that's how we get that feel. And I feel like we really excel in things that are insanely vibey and have lots of rich harmonics and things that are tough to recreate. That's kind of our world,
Totally. Yeah, Coil they've been around for quite a while. I've definitely eyeballed some of their products in the past, and it'll be fun to be able to dive in digitally and mess with some of this stuff. And I think that's what's cool, is because let's not like pretend that Coil and Benson they're high end products. They're not something that everybody's gonna just run out and have in their life, necessarily, because it's especially not from the jump. But
handmade. Yep.
It takes a lot of time and effort to build those things, and that's just what it is.
Yep.
But what you guys have been able to do is get something that really truly does sound. And I've spent so much time with the Benson products. I'm very familiar with them. The plugin really does sound like that, and I'm excited to see the Coil one too.
The Coil one is insane. It's like, it's weird. I don't like comparing things to tape, but it's like when you put it on a track, all of a sudden, all the like grainy, digital, jagged kind of teeth go away. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't pull anything backwards in the mix. It just sounds massive. And it really sounds like it's like in the analog realm. It pulls all the digital kind of spiky stuff out. And I've never heard a plugin do that. I mean, the closest thing I have to that is like the Crane Song Phoenix, that's like a $300 plugin. That's one of my favorite plugins. This is like on a whole other spectrum. And like there's like a negative feedback thing that you can kind of dial in, like the brightness to taste. And then there's a low boost that is like absolutely massive sounding, and you can overdrive it and do whatever you want. It's like you just put it on every track, and if you want your recording to not sound like it was kind of shrill and digital, that gets rid of it, and it sounds really expensive.
Very nice. So are you doing, I can't remember because I'm not as well versed in the mixing and recording world as you are, obviously. So I remember Coil having a few different products. Are you focusing on one specific, or are you going to go with their whole range, or what's the
first one is the CA70, which runs off of an octal tube, which is like some old school, really warm, fat sounding tube. And then we will do the 286, which is kind of more like a Telefunken V72 preamp. It's a little more lush, a little more sweet on the top end. Um, yeah, those are like their two main preamps. And what's cool is like it's totally a line amp too, and that's what we use in the mixing world, but we're modeling the mic pre as well,
Right.
even though it's in Pro Tools. So like if you want to get some crazy like 9-inch nails distortion or stuff like that, like just to have fun with, you can switch up to the mic and crank that and do some crazy stuff too. So they're really cool and they're really usable.
Very nice. Very, very cool. So when, obviously like Sweetwater supports this show and I really like them a lot as a company. When did you guys start working with them and how does that work with a plugin company? If you can talk about that.
So with Sweetwater, my salesman at the time approached us. His name's Dave Dunsire. Shout out Dave, because he actually works with us now. He manages all of our socials and does all the influencer stuff that I have zero desire to even mess with. But I can't remember if it was him or somebody reached out to Luke, but somebody reached out to us and said that they were really excited about our products and wanted to have a call. We had a call with a guy named Wes over there. I don't know if you know him, but he was really cool and pretty much just like, we can do whatever you guys want to do. And so we kind of just eased into it. And yeah, we love working with them. They're awesome. They always buy a lot of everything that we put out and sell it. So that's cool.
Hey, that's what you want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been a really good partner. It seems like we got on there and then it maybe a month or two later, you guys were in there too. So it was a weird kind of 1-2 thing. And they've been a great partner for Stringjoy as well. And we have always liked them, but we were like, how is, when I think of Sweetwater, I'm like, I'm buying a guitar or I'm buying a interface or I'm buying something a little bigger. And so we weren't really sure how that would do with a consumable product like what we sell. And it's been absolutely incredible. And the thing that we discovered there when we started, I kind of started at a Gear Fest. It was like, who do I got to talk to? And then pretty soon it was like, oh, well, there's a lot of the people that work here already buy your stuff and we didn't know it. So it doesn't make any sense to not have it. So it was a weird thing, but they've been really, really cool. And I was just, always curious how that worked with plugins because it's a little bit of a different delivery vehicle than
and
a physical product.
Dave got Benson in there too, so that's awesome. I'm stoked that he's there as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. It shows you that I think, this obviously I'm a little biased because we're talking about myself and all of my friends, but it kind of shows that they've got their ear to the ground maybe a little more than some of the other big box outlets, at least right now. That could always change, of course.
Yeah, they're awesome. And they have like total, I don't want to say control, but there's just something that they offer that other people don't. Like the fact that I can go on their site and look at like Murphy Labs and like find the lightest one with like the serial number I like, with the flame top that I like, with,
right.
It's so cool. It's like the only thing you can't do is feel the neck, but like everything else you can do on there. And that I really love that. And then like their policies are great. They're so easy to deal with. I work with a guy named Josie now. Shout out Josie.
Josie's awesome. I've talked to him a few times. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing, this is a complete sidebar going totally away from what we were talking about, but it gets me into some questions I wanted to ask you that are a little bit unrelated to products and whatnot.
Sure.
I just got an email from some PR people talking about the newest Darkest Hour release, and I was just scrolling through the description, and it was like, yeah, produced by Taylor Larson. So I emailed the guy. I was like, I'm literally about to hop in like a half hour, hop into a conversation with Taylor. I want to talk to him about that. I'm a big fan of the band. So how did that shake out? What did that process look like? I'm kind of more curious about your process as a producer. We've talked a lot about hardware and gear and stuff in our conversations on this show, but when you're producing a band, especially somebody like that's been around for quite a while. What's your approach, generally speaking?
So this record was a little different. I did a record for them a while ago, early in my career. I want to say like 2014-ish is when we started it. And that was their self-titled album. That one I was very hands-on with. That one, I'm writing guitar riffs with them and really kind of leaning into that. And it was weird because we had a version of that record that we all felt was going to be like the defining thing for that band. We were all in love and we had it laid out the way we wanted. And then the record label was they heard it, and I think they got so excited that they wanted to kind of get their hand in it as well. And I'm not like talking or trying to say anything negative. I understand it, but we kind of feel like they changed it for the worse. And so we all left that that record kind of with a bad taste. Like everyone's just like, man, like we thought this was going to be amazing. We followed these orders, and I don't even think I'm not blaming the record label. I think it's like when you get too many cooks in the kitchen, when you have too many people making decisions, what happens is you'll have a part here, a part here. And if 5 dudes plus a record producer plus the record label all argue it, and maybe even the manager, it's been argued to here. And so now it's no longer this or this, it's safe. And it's like, it's not all one thing or the other. And I think when you argue something so much into a safe zone, there's nothing special about it. You kind of sucked all the life out of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened to that record a bunch. And so, we're nearly 10 years later, slightly less. And Mike Schleibaum, the guitar player, reaches out to me and he's like, hey man, everybody really wants to do the new record with you. I know it was kind of crazy last time. Like it's not going to be like that this time. We want to make it as easy on you as possible. So I wouldn't even call myself a producer of this record. I didn't do nearly as much in the songwriting realm as I did more so in shaping the sounds, engineering, kind of coming up with the aesthetic, and then doing the mix and the master of it. So this one for me, and I'll tell you, like, I think if they wanted me to full blown produce it, I would have said no, because I'd kind of taken a hiatus doing the Mixwave stuff and taken a hiatus from doing records and being that passionate about it. And this was like, I was like, all right, I'm going to kind of ease back into this, and I don't want to be fighting with 5 dudes and kind of going crazy. So I'm a little nervous about it. So Mike was like, dude, we have everything ironed out. Like, the songs are pretty much there. If you have any little things, whatever, like, we can talk about it. But yeah, this one I'll call painless. How about that?
Okay.
It was it went really smooth, and all my effort and energy went to the sonics of it, which I kind of enjoyed. And especially that it was in a different studio, because I'm here now, and I did their record along with 10 years of my career at the other space. So like this was kind of like a whole new challenge, a whole new mountain to climb.
I think I can see both angles. At some point, being very hands-on with the actual construction and crafting of the songs with the band would be really rewarding. But the gear nerd and kind of just sonic tweaker in me would really like to have all that pressure removed and just sit there and try to make something sound as rad as possible, which sounds like just as much fun with just a lot less pressure. You're like, I know I can do this. I know I can make this sound massive, and just diving in and having fun with it. Did you guys record it? Like, did you do a lot of in the box stuff? Did you record everything outside, or some blend of both? What was the process?
Well, we tracked everything. Like, we had them in the same drum room that we do all of our Mixwave drum libraries in. ran through a bunch of Neves and APIs, really dialed everything in, used really cool mics, and kind of got really cool tones. As far as guitar amps, we tracked through a real amp. We took a DI, and then I ended up reamping it a couple more times and blending a couple things. So like, for example, we tracked with a rev head, and then I ended up reamping through a 5153 and then blending like 20% of that in with the rev and using different mics and set up like that. And so, yeah, I mean, we got all the stuff in the analog realm. And then when it was time to mix, I mixed the majority in the box. My bus compressor went out to the SSL and came back in, but I don't always use that. I don't always do like hybrid mixing. It depends on the genre and it depends on the client. I would say I'm like 90% in the box now, and like I use plug-in bus compressors all the time, and it's totally fine. So it just depends,
Was that a shift mentally for you to start going in? Like, was it intentional, or did you just find yourself starting to work more and more that way as you dove ever deeper into the plug-in world?
So I've always kind of shot plugins out against their hardware, what they're modeled after. And like, I don't care what's better. It'd be cool if the hardware was better because it's expensive and it's cool. But like, if a plugin sounds as good or beats it, I'll admit it, because here's the thing. You're going to hear the record when it's done, and you're not going to know what I used to make it sound that way. So I don't care. Whatever gets me from point A to point B faster. Granted, there are some hardware units that are just so special, but man, the plugins are just getting so good these days. And like an example with one is I keep buying API 2500 compressors, and it's like my favorite guitar compressor. And like, I always want the real one to be better than the plugin. I try the plugin and it's always better than the real one, and then I always end up selling it again. But like, it just is what it is. The plugin's just better, and that's just what it is. So yeah, I mean, I can do something fully in the box and like be stoked on it. It's fun for me to use the analog gear, but plugins are just so good. I compare it to like pixels with a camera. It's like, yeah, if we go back 20 years, okay, you can see some pixels or it might look jagged or whatever. And it's same thing with the audio world. Like, I started Pro Tools in the TDM world where it was like, you could tell like the plugins were very crunchy sounding, and it's just the resolution is so fine now that it's like, see if you can figure out a difference,
Yeah. And it's the same in just the straight up guitar world too. It's
oh yeah.
It just is astonishing to me. And your plugin was probably the breaking point for me, because for years I'm like, I have all this stuff. I have the space to work in. Why would I bother doing anything digital? And that when I went over to Chris's house and he's like, yeah, give this a try. Let's see what you think. And I was just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the feel of it is almost important as the sound. But like, what's crazy is all these other brands have endorsed me. Like, some of the biggest guitar amp plugin brands have been sending me plugins for years. They just pop up in my iLok account, and I always try them, and I'm like, there's something wrong with the top end. It's always sounds like pink noise with like a sine wave running alongside it or something. Like, it's very noisy and hissy sounding. And then the feel is always wrong. And it's kind of crazy to me that people love these brands, because it's like, I try it and I'm like, this sounds like a 90s Line 6 pod. Like,
right.
it's crazy how powerful branding is, when people want to feel like they're in a club or with a clique of people that use certain things. It's like, yeah, but if you use your ears, you can tell it doesn't sound good. And so for us, the big thing that separates us is we use completely different technology. we're not doing it sine sweep based. We're not getting that hissy pink noise sound. We're getting the feel. We're getting the components. And not only like there's some companies that do plugins, not necessarily guitar amp plugins, but like analog gear plugins, component level modeling. And it gets you close, but it doesn't get you all of the way there. So what makes us so special is that we'll take like the first beta or iteration of the plugin and we'll put it through insane testing against the real thing, and we won't stop. We'll go back and forth with our team until it's like you can't hear a difference, or it's just better, just flat out better than, you know, the analog counterpart. So I think it's like we have people beat on the technology, and then we have them beat with the fact that it's all mixers and record producers that work on our team, and we put things through insane kind of testing to make sure it's flawless before other people try it, you know. And even when we partner with brands like Benson or Coil, those dudes have insane ears. Like if you look up the producer that invented Coil, Jim Valentine, like listen to his discography. It's so sick. Like he's done Spoon, he's done this band called White Denim that I've been getting into.
Yeah, they're great.
So sick. And like that dude, like we sent him the plugin and he called us and he's like, all right, it's doing this, this, and this. And with my ear, I can tell it's missing just 1% here in the top end right here. And then 5 hours later, he makes an audio example and shows me on a chart. It really is just this one little sliver. And we're like, wow, okay, that's really easy to add that. And, you know, so it's like we got it to a point where we couldn't tell a difference with our eyes closed. And then we work with people like that push us even harder. And same with Benson, you know? So
yeah. It's some people just have, you know, my ears are pretty good. They're not the best. You know, they're pretty good, but I've had friends be able to detect things that were really harsh to them. And to me, it was like, oh, I can hear it, but it's not bugging me.
Did you ever go to like concerts and not wear earplugs and stuff like that, or play live shows?
I definitely went to concerts and didn't wear earplugs in my youth, of course.
So that could be like you have some attenuation in those harsher frequencies so they don't bother you. You know?
I know I do. I've had my ears tested enough times, and I also worked as a heavy equipment mechanic for a long time, and I was actually one of the more diligent people that worked in that industry, or not the whole industry, but worked in the shops that I did because I love music so much. I would actually, I'm like, I'm not losing my hearing because I'm hitting something with a hammer. That's stupid. Like,
do you get like a ringing in your ears after working all day and stuff?
No, not really. I was pretty careful about it. You know, once in a while you walk into a shop and somebody happens to be starting to use an air hammer or something, and you didn't know it, so you just accidentally happen to be blasted by an insane amount of sound. So like there's things
just
that
run away.
Yeah, I would. I'm just like, whoop, I'm out of here. I'm not going to deal with that. But I can't say that like it was 100% every time. You know, so, but yeah, I definitely have a little bit of high end loss. It's not bad. It's still like within the acceptable range, but like my hearing's really good other than like super high end frequencies. But yeah, it's something that fortunately I've been monitoring it for a long time, and that stuff does just naturally change as you age. Fortunately, I've stayed pretty flat since I discovered that in my early 20s.
You ever find that iPhone app where it's like when you stop hearing it, it tells you how old your hearing is?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was for me, but
I got like 25.
Nice.
Which I'm stoked about.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I feel like I was somewhere in my late 20s, which is pretty good, I guess. But
that's
yeah,
great.
Weirdly, like working with sound and you know, more musical based stuff now, like I'm way less exposed to super high loud frequencies because I'm just more careful about it. You know, I do turn up my amps out here once in a while just to feel my pants shake a little bit, but
have a little fun. Yeah,
it's pretty rare, and it's not for very long, you know, because it's just not worth it. Like I want to be able to hear.
Yeah.
You know.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Maris Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. So musicians, consider this a PSA. Take care of your ears, right?
Most important thing. Well, for me, because I'm a mixer, so yeah, I'd be devastated.
Have you ever been in a situation where you were, maybe being a little bit irresponsible with your hearing and you got a little freaked out? It's happened to me once.
Probably because when I was younger, I used to play shows, and maybe sometimes I didn't wear earplugs, and I'd come home and my ears would be ringing all loud. But I mean, I live in a city, so even just walking outside, there would be a fire truck or something. I'm always plugging my ears if they go by, and just trying to be conscious of that. I sleep with earplugs. That's the only way I could sleep at night. So
whoa,
I'll put earplugs in at bed, and then I'll fall asleep, and then I'll wake up, and maybe even the first 2 hours of my day, I'll just forget that they're in, and then I'll take them out, and everything's just
high def,
crisp.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I found for shows now, I'm always wearing erasers or something, because the construction plugs, while they work, everything just and it's why am I even at the show if I can't enjoy how it sounds? But also, I don't want to be an idiot either. So yeah, I'm always, erasers were I don't know, I think they're $60 or something. They're not that bad. It's worth it if you go to a lot of shows. I like those, because then it still sounds like it's supposed to sound. Mostly. It's not perfect, obviously, but it's pretty good.
I actually love the way earplugs sound. I'm so used to those Vic Firth drum isolating headphone things that that's how I tune drums, is with those, because I'm just so used to the way they sound. So anytime I'll tune a drum kit, I'll put those on, and then I know what I'm doing.
Oh, crazy. So you don't listen because you've gotten used to getting them to where you like them while attenuated, which that goes anything that you're mixing or doing. If you're not super familiar with the monitors you're using, for instance, that can change how you do things. Familiarizing yourself, regardless of what that looks like, familiarizing yourself with your system is really important.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had an experience where you jumped into something else and did the car check or did some other check, and you're maybe I need to go back to my old monitors or something, where you were surprised?
I don't know if you see my Instagram, but I'm always cycling through gear. I have to try everything. I sell things and regret it all the time. I'll be at a point where I feel I'm all right, I've completely mastered this piece of gear or whatever. Now I'm going to sell it and get something completely different just to challenge myself because I'm bored, you know? and then I'll do it. And then I'll be like, why'd you do that? Like the funny thing is I remember, so I started out on Genelecs and NS10s.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of went through other things. I got barefoot monitors, which were horrible. And then I got, what did I get after that? I got ATCs, which didn't work in the room that I was in. And then I tried Adams, which I returned the same day. And then I was just in this like phase of like, I want to know what everything does. Oh, I had focals and they were so bad. And no offense to you if you have focals, but they were so bad that the band I was working with literally asked me if I could get different speakers because they were fatiguing their ears. So,
Jeez.
yeah. So I've tried a lot of stuff. And one day I was reading Gear Space and saw this thing about Amphion monitors. And this was forever ago. And so I ordered a pair of 118s and I put them up and I was like, all right, I'm just going to mix on these blindly and just follow them. So I did a mix and it was a test mix that had to go against like Chris Lord Alge, Mark Needham, Neil Averon, like a bunch of other people for this band. And they were kind of kicking my ass. Like I was mixing and I was like, man, this sucks. Like I can't vibe with these monitors. And then, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, well, I'll take a bounce. And I went in the car and played it and was like, whoa, that sounds amazing. Like I didn't think I was doing that. And so that was the first time I had monitors where it was like insane translation. And then I ended up with that track beating out all those other mixers for the job. And then that song is like literally my only gold record right now. So like,
Nice.
yeah, I had those and that was like insane translation. And then from there, I tried other monitors and now I've kind of gotten back to a place where the Amphions get crazy translation. And then I really enjoy working on the ATCs, like when you're blasting and you have a click track and it's loud. And so I kind of bounce back and forth between ATCs and Amphions.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have nearly the experience that you do, but I've been using the Cali Audio LP8s for a while, and my criticism of them is that they actually sound, at least in my very untreated, unprofessional space, they actually sound a little bit too good. If that makes any sense.
Flattering.
Like everything sounds really nice through them. I know that now, and I've used them so much that I can kind of adjust a little bit here and there for that. But like,
yeah.
Like I have them and I have their subwoofer, and I'm just like, man, I just really love how these sound, but they're a little bit too nice to to everything. So I got their they wanted me to check out their near field system that's for like homes and apartments and things like that. That's just like you hook your laptop up to it. And I've been doing a little bit of mixing on those. And while that does sound nice, I find it, I'm kind of shocked to say it, like it sounds a little more, it's less forgiving. Like I can get, you know, for me, the car mix has almost become the phone mix now, where like I'll immediately like bounce something down to my phone and check it on there, because I know that's how 99% of people are listening to music now, even though that's terrible. And I'll
mix on my phone, dude. I'll literally send it out of Pro Tools, turn all my monitors off, and play it just through the iPhone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll step outside and just listen to it sometimes, because I just see, like, my wife is a music lover. Like, she listens to way more music than I do. She's got music playing all day, but it's her phone sitting there on the counter.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Or sitting in her pocket or something. And I'm just like, this is how normal people listen to it. Not weirdos like us.
Absolutely.
So it's, I think the phone mix has become even more important than the car mix, or mix check rather, these days. So
big time. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree 100%.
Which is where these LP8s tend to fail. And maybe it's because they're so big and like have a lot of low end and the space isn't really treated or anything, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. But
Yeah.
that's what I have to compensate for a lot of times, is that these, it sounds so beefy, and I'll switch to my phone and be like, no.
Yep. I know exactly what that's about. Yeah.
Do you have any go-to tricks for trying to optimize phone mixes, as bad as that sounds these days? But do you have any tricks you can impart to the listeners?
It's kind of tough because I was trying this app that streams it to your phone, but somehow that compresses. So like if I'm streaming out of Pro Tools into my phone and then I bounce a song down from Pro Tools and listen to it out of like a player in my phone,
Mm-hmm.
it's still different. So it's like it kind of gets me there ballpark, but it's not 100%. What I want is for a company to come out with some sort of way to interface to an iPhone where it's wired in. I can have it sitting in front of my desk and just mix off that. I would love to have that. But NS10s help. I've never been an NS10 guy, but now more than ever, they do sound very ratty and mid-rangey, and like they help with that. Like what I'll do is I have a pair off to the side and I'll send a mix mono to them, and they're just kind of far away from me, and maybe I'll get a sense of where the vocal's sitting if I do that. But yeah, it's a struggle kind of getting that phone check, without having to bounce it down and listen on there. But I'm hopeful that somebody will like take the speakers from an iPhone and like put them in a device that can like sit on your studio desk. That's like, I've been looking for that for years. It would be so sick to have that.
The fastest thing that I've found, and it's not good enough, is I made a very quick and dirty IR of my phone speakers. And, and ran everything through that as a check, and it sort of works. It is not perfect.
Yeah.
Which sounds weird. Like we're trying to optimize for the worst listening situation, basically.
I know. Well, I think the move is you mix it on the thing that sounds honest for you, and then from there you start seeing what it does on the phone, and you can kind of tweak and meet in the middle,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's pretty much what I've come to. I'll bounce it out. I just bounce it out to the phone, check it.
Yep.
It's slower, but that's the thing. I have found, like, for heavy guitars and things, not so much for clean, pretty stuff, but I'm always having to do quite a bit of like parallel compression to make it work better on phones. I don't know if that's just something that's in my head that worked once and now I'm addicted to it, or if that's a real thing.
Parallel on the guitars, you say?
Yeah, I'll take one guitar and just squish it to death. I'll just like clone the track, squish it to death with a few different compressors usually, and then just kind of manually blend it in until I'm satisfied. That seems to fatten up, like, for stuff that I do, right? Like, it's not a full band, it's just me trying to demo a pedal or something. And I'm not trying to necessarily make it sound better than what it sounds like in the room. I'm trying to get the phone to sound as close to what my room sound is as possible, which is really hard to do, but I try, because I don't want people to watch a video that I made and then be like, I got this pedal and it doesn't sound anything like that. And I know that still happens because nobody's using the exact same gear or playing the same way or whatever, but I still try to get it as close to the room sound as possible. And that's hard. It's hard to do.
I mean, for me, when I'm mixing, I'll put a compressor just on the main track, not even parallel. I'm not afraid.
You just go for it.
I just go all in. Yeah.
I'll do that, but I'll be real gentle with it. The parallel one is like a block.
Yeah, I'm not gentle with anything ever.
You just roll it. You go for it hard.
I go for it. Yep.
I like it. I like your style. You're not afraid to do what you feel. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So have you had any new guitar purchases since we last talked that has really been driving you crazy? Things that you're a little bit obsessed with?
I've been into the vintage world, and that's not a world you want to get in, man.
It's dangerous.
That's a rough world to be in. But I ended up like trading and kind of just maneuvering through, all the stuff that I collected my whole life. And then turned it all into vintage gear and just kind of level up here and there. And so where I'm sitting right now is I have a 63 Strat, a 63 Telly. Both are absolutely insane. I just got both of them refretted at Glazers by Nick, and
Nice.
they're incredible. And what else do I have? I have a 62 P bass that sounds like a piano. That's amazing. I have a 66 Martin D28 I just got for acoustics. That's like incredible. That's why I was bugging you about the strings.
Oh, right.
And the coolest thing I have that I just got is a 62 Ebony Block Les Paul, with PAFs, which is actually an SG, but not called an SG yet.
Yes.
That thing is mind-blowing.
What color is it?
It's faded. It was red at one point, and it's kind of faded into like a brown/orange vibe.
I love it. Those are so cool.
Yeah, I'm a Gibson guy. Like, somehow I have Fenders just because that's what I was able to get. But like, if I could get like a crazy 50s gold top or like a 57 or something with PAFs, I would just trade my whole rig, You
need to listen to, if you haven't already, I did an episode with a dude. He is on Instagram as True Vintage Guitar, and this dude literally flies all over the world buying vintage guitars from under people's beds. And sometimes he has a buyer in mind, sometimes he buys them for his store. Like, he's got a storefront now, but he has the craziest story about going down to South Africa and hunting down a 59 Burst for Joe Bonamassa, of course. And like, he tells the whole story on the podcast. The dude was fascinating to listen to. It's like, this is your job. And I think it is so cool. He's just hunting for super rare vintage guitars. Like, that's his whole thing. That's all he does.
So I have a guy, his store's called Garrett Park. If you want to check them out on Instagram, his name's Rick Hogue. And he's been a great guy to meet for me because he's nearby. He's been doing this since the 80s. Like, he's had bursts that are in those books, and like, he does crazy stuff and he gets crazy stuff, and he does the whole guitar safari where like he just flew to Japan, bought a 57 gold top, and then like sold it in Poland on the way back. Like,
wow.
Just crazy stuff like that. But like, what's cool is he's nearby, so he'll always bring stuff down for me to try in my studio. And so that's how like you get to try all the things that you hear about that you would necessarily never get to touch. And you get to hear the pickups on your gear and like kind of figure out which ones are amazing and which ones aren't. Not all the vintage stuff is great. Like,
right.
It can be hit or miss, but when it's great, it's great. So shout out Rick and Garrett Park. He's very similar to the True Vintage guy, only he's been doing it since the 80s, and he's a savage, man. He's traveling 24/7 and just buying guitars and selling them like crazy. Dude, I got my entire collection from this guy.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel somewhat fortunate that I started, and I was still late to it, relatively speaking, but I'm looking around and like, I don't have the craziest vintage guitar collection, but I've got some pieces that I really like. And I got into it prior to it just going absolutely bonkers. Like I got my 74 Tele-Custom that I love. I love that guitar. I got it for like under $2,000.
What's it, 5 now, 7 now?
I don't even want to look. I don't even want to look. Like I barely consider this vintage, but I guess it technically is, because I think it's 25 or 30 years old. It's quote unquote technically vintage at that point. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's accurate, but I've been told that before. But I've got my 81 Les Paul Custom. I couldn't justify what those are going for now.
I think they're somewhere between like 4 to 8. I'm super nerdy with this stuff. And
I just saw a couple that were very similar to mine for between 6 and 7. And it was I bought it for 2 or 21.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself for not getting into it earlier. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I mean, I was into like, master builds and like Murphy Lab custom shop stuff.
Those are great too. I mean,
yeah, I mean, they are really good, but it's like, yeah, it blows my mind. And like, even like a Strat, it's funny, like all the dudes that I hang with are like, man, I could have gotten a vintage 60 Strat for like $4,000. And now they're like starting to be 25, 35K, depending on which one. And it's wild.
I still think about, there was this pre-CBS. It's still I've talked about it on the show a few times, but I can still see it in my mind's eye. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblissaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
It was a pre-CBS Jazzmaster. I can't remember exactly what year. I'm pretty sure it was a slab board too. Somebody had refinned it. It was white with the sunburst was poking through in some spots. You know how it does after? I was like, oh, the thing looks so good. And this was years ago, and it was just under $3,000.
Wow.
Yeah. And
if it's a slab board, it would have had to have been 62 or earlier.
I think it was a 62, actually, now that I say that out loud. Wow. That sounds right. I just did not have the $2,900 or $2,800 at the time. I was drooling over it and like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And I just couldn't quite scrape it together. This lady, it was kind of a weird deal. This lady had it like on consignment at a guitar store, but she was advertising it on Craigslist, and she didn't really want to sell it, but she had to. It was like a really weird situation, but I still think about that guitar all the time. It's kind of like the holy grail Jazzmaster that got away, even aesthetically. Like I remember, like, this thing looks so rad. It's just,
yeah. I love Olympic white.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And just like how it looked like it had come from like a relic shop, but it didn't. It was just naturally beat up. It was that way.
Real. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. I guess that's the one that got away. What about amps? Are you getting into vintage amps at all, or pedals, or any other old things?
Somewhat. It's funny. I think our plugins sound better for like what you have to go through, but trying to think some cool stuff we've gotten. I think we have like a matchless head that's like one of the first few made, super old. That sounded really cool. Not really though. And you can see like on the vintage market, all the big amps sell for nothing now because everybody's playing in their bedroom. So like the only vintage amps that like fetch a lot of money would be like a Princeton because it's small, or like a Deluxe because it's small. Like as soon as you get up to something that's the exact same circuit, but it's just more wattage and bigger, the price plummets, which is crazy to me because when I was a kid, the bigger the amp, the more expensive it was.
Sure.
It's crazy how cheap vintage Marshalls are going for now. That's
I
wild.
know. It is crazy, but it's making me go like, I don't think that's going to last forever. I feel like we're in a cycle that like, I think people will be recording this way.
I think it's going to
away.
get worse, honestly, because everybody now, like even in live settings, we've gotten further and further away from the need to have that volume. Now, all my friends that play are either using something digital, or if they're in a cool band that doesn't need that, they're using like a Benson that's 20 watts or something, or like something that's light and easy to carry. I don't know that we're ever going to see like full Marshall stacks again unless it's like a band trying to do that thing, just for the aesthetic look of it.
I think somebody's going to come along and do that exactly, and it's going to drive up the collector market because the collectors don't. And I'm a little
like
bit
a Nirvana for amps to just break this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. Yeah. I think eventually, like especially Marshalls and things like that.
Yeah,
like, those are always going to be really cool, and it's just going to take the right artist to come around and kind of make it hot again. That I still don't think it'll see mass adoption in your like average working band, but yeah. I think collectors will be like, wait a minute, those are cool. You know what? I miss a JCM 800. I miss a insert. Like I want a JMP or I want a whatever. Like, and they'll start snatching them up. That's my prediction. I could be wrong.
I think the cool thing is like, and this is a little bit off topic from Marshall, but I think the cool thing is like what Mayer did with the whole Dumble thing, because it's like those and like the train wrecks have always been super cool and super rare, but like Mayer brought it to the forefront with his, when he got into the whole 2-Rock world and like started using the Dumble stuff. And that's like such a cool guitar sound that like I didn't know existed until, the last 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I spent most of my career playing guitar and playing all these other amps. And then it's just like, you get a 2-Rock and it's this whole other thing that's like so euphoric and 3-dimensional and works really well with a Strat, works well with everything, but it's just like, it's the king of clean sound, and it's like the ultimate pedal amp. And so I'm a huge fan of 2-Rock. I don't know if you know those guys, but
I'm familiar with their work for sure. I don't know them, but I'm definitely familiar with their work.
Maybe we're working with them.
Oh,
I don't know.
Interesting. Maybe.
Yeah, there's a possibility.
Just maybe.
Yeah. But I love their amp. I was a huge fan regardless, and the ones I have I bought, and yeah.
Nice. Very cool, man. Well, hey, we're creeping up on that hour mark, and I do have the classic questions that you've already been asked, so I might change it up a little bit. But before I do that, I'd like to give you the chance to take the stage. You're talking to a couple thousand people right now. You can shout out anybody you want to shout out, plug anything you want to plug, or say hi to your Aunt Tilly, whatever you want to do.
I mean, really, honestly, I don't want to shout anyone out. I want to say thank you if any of the people that are following have picked up our stuff or tried it out. Like, it's crazy because we started our company in the worst economy ever. And like all my friends plug-in companies, they're down like pretty astronomical numbers, and they're hurting. And it was really the worst time for us to start it, and it's going insane. Like, so I just feel so grateful and like thankful that people are picking this stuff up. Like I'm kind of shocked by it in this economy because I have to put myself in other people's shoes and think like, am I going to buy food or am I going to buy this plugin? So I'm just super grateful, and I want everyone to know that like I put everything I have into this. Like my whole career, I've had a band in the studio every month, and I've made music, and I've been kind of used to climbing mountains with different members of bands. And I put that whole thing on hold to kind of get this thing going, and took that hiatus to do this and put everything I have in it. And so, yeah, I'm just thankful that anyone even checks it out. And, you know, we're just getting started.
Very cool, man. Very cool. All right, dude. Well, let's we're going to go away from the classic questions a little bit because I've already asked you those.
Okay.
But in a similar vein, we'll go with, what is your favorite DoD pedal?
DoD, like the brand DoD?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You ever mess with the old DoD stuff?
No.
None of
My
it?
dad, I think my dad gave me like a blue one when I was a kid. I don't even remember what it was. Maybe a distortion or something.
Oh man, I thought that maybe that would
I
be.
know nothing about DoD.
Oh well, you're gonna have to get educated. I think there's probably a whole JHS episode on it at this point.
Really?
There's some great stuff in there. Yeah.
Maybe we know those guys as well.
Maybe you do. Maybe you do. That'd be interesting. That's called foreshadowing, everybody. Well, I guess we can't do the DoD, so maybe a related sister company, we can go with Digitech. You got any Digitech stuff?
I mean, the whammy, I guess.
Just the whammy?
That's the only thing by them that I own.
I think Boss is just such an easier company to ask. That's why I do it, because everyone's got something.
Not even into Boss, really, to tell you the truth. I love the tuner. That's
what you said last time. I'm pretty sure.
When I was a kid, I used to have this blue one that like you step on it, and went like a pitch shifter.
Yeah.
PS5 maybe.
I think PS5, PS3, one of the two.
Yeah, I had that, and then I also remember there was one. So me and the keyboard player in my band were, and I guess I kind of still am now, but it's more new. We used to be obsessed with like bands like the Appleseed Cast and Explosions in the Sky and all that. And so we would nerd out on all the like ambient vintage sounding pedals and stuff. And I remember there was one that he was like super into that he got called the Slow Gear.
Yeah.
By Boss.
G1. Uh-huh.
And like that one was super cool. Sorry, my microphone's sliding and going crazy. But yeah, those brands I don't really know too much about, to tell you the truth.
It's worth a dive for sure.
But I do have a pedal board and I have a bunch of stuff on it. It's just not any of those brands.
That's fair enough. But I think you might surprise yourself. It's worth a dive. Sometimes the bigger brands have gotten a little bit overlooked. Boss especially, I feel like. Boss has made some really odd things and cool things that I think people think of that. They're like, they make the Metal Zone and the DS1, right? But they've got some oddballs out there, like the Slicer. The Slicer's super weird. That's a newer one, but that's a really weird pedal that I think a lot of people would have a lot of fun with.
Is Digitech the one that makes the Bad Monkey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I don't know that they do anymore, but
that's like a grungy pedal that I know a lot of my friends that are record producers love.
Did you see the Bad Monkey craziness of, was it early 2023? Maybe 2024? No. Oh, JHS did a video on it.
Okay.
And then
with the Klon. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, you did see it. All right, cool.
Yeah. I heard about it. I didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about. For sure.
All of a sudden Bad Monkeys were attempting to be sold for $600. I don't know that actually anybody paid that much for them, but they were definitely listed for that price. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I paid a lot for a TS10, like the old Tube Screamer, the one that looks really corny from the 80s.
I think also
those sound so good, man. Like they're so like they have like a softness and like they're bouncy sounding, like they're not stiff, and that's a really cool sounding pedal. I think it's like not made well and like the op amp isn't good in it, but like it sounds so good. I love those. The
reason you paid more for that one was also John Mayer's fault, because those were cheap until people found out
he had those things going up for like $1,000 at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
Crazy.
I've got the graphic EQ from that same range, and it's better built than they look like they are, but I don't know that I'd be touring with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know why I have this pedal, to be honest. I don't really need it, but I have it for some
Yeah.
reason. But all right, final question. Since we already talked pizza, I'm gonna say, why don't we talk about maybe what's your favorite regional style of barbecue?
I'm on a crazy diet right now.
So I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say
And
any of that.
no. I don't eat any seasoning or spice or anything. Like, I haven't for the last, I don't know, 6 months. Like, I literally just eat salt on my food,
How does
and
that
that's it.
feel? How are you doing with that?
I'm like 37 pounds down, feeling like $1,000,000, honestly.
Does the seasoning have anything to do with that? Or is there
Yeah,
more? What's
so
going on
like
here?
I'm kind of on an elimination thing, and not to get too crazy into it, but like I got this thing with, your gut health, where certain things have irritated it for so long, like drinking alcohol or eating certain kinds of like seed oils and certain things from eating out.
Mm-hmm.
They can kind of like mess up the way that your stomach absorbs nutrients, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get symptoms like rashes or whatever else it may be. And so I did a thing where I eliminated all things that are like inflammation style foods. And dude, I love spicy food. That's probably like my number one favorite, like Mexican food,
Oh,
jalapenos on everything.
I'm a big spicy food guy.
Dude,
Yeah.
I had to cut all of that out because
Oh.
that's all like super, like, it all irritates your gut lining. And so like I've been on this elimination diet to fix my gut, and like I'm gonna go back and eat that stuff at some point, but like I'm gonna get shredded first. I'm not gonna drink alcohol for a while. I'm not gonna like eat any of that stuff for a while. And like what I've been doing has worked so well that I'm just kind of on autopilot now until I get to the weight I want to be, and then I'll start bringing things in back slowly. But I'll try to kind of keep a balance.
Are you doing any specific sort of training to try to get down to whatever your goal weight is, or are you just kind of doing it mostly through diet?
I lift weights 3 times a week, and I run 2 times a week.
Nice.
It's not always consistent, but for the most part, I do it. I also try to get over 10,000 steps a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the diet, just whatever I'm doing now, it's weird because like I've always gone up and down my whole life. I'll get to 230, I'll get down to 165, then back up to 230 back. So like over the last 10 years, I've gotten fat maybe 2 or 3 times and lost the weight 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So other things have worked for me, but now I think because I had been around a lot of drinking in my career, and the music world is kind of like that, and eating out a lot, I think I pushed my gut health into a spot where it wasn't accepting the old methods that would work for me to lose weight. So I knew I had to make a real change. And so I did that this time, and it's like the only thing that's worked, and it's worked insane. So just pushing and trying to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I totally feel that. You gotta do what you gotta do. And the thing is like there's all kinds of different quote unquote information and different sources out there for that stuff. And some of it's nonsense and some of it isn't. And it can be really difficult for somebody who doesn't, study that stuff for a living, even to parse through all the mumbo jumbo that's out there. But the reality is most changes that aren't the standard American diet are probably going to be, as long as it's not some crazy, insane water fast for whatever, 20 years, then yeah, you're probably going to be in heading in a better direction than, somebody who eats cake and McDonald's all day, and I say that like semi jokingly, but semi not. There's friends and family that I have that they're like, man, I just don't feel good. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be your dad, but I can tell why,
Yeah.
Like I'm far from a perfect diet. I'm the pizza guy. Everybody knows, like, the only things I post are the things I probably shouldn't be eating most of the time. I don't ever post like any of the healthy
good stuff
that I'm doing because it's boring. It's not fun. But I eat way better than people would probably assume that I do. For being the pizza guy.
Well, for me, like the same way that I told you, I've tried every like studio monitor and all that stuff. I try all the different diets, and I try to find the ones that work for me. And this time, my old tricks didn't work to get the weight off, so I tried something that I'd never tried before, and works amazing.
Hey, if you're feeling good, that's what matters. That's
absolutely.
If you're not feeling good, you can't really do much else.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for hanging out. I could talk to you all day, and maybe we'll do a little more jabbering on Patreon if that works for you.
Sure.
Right on. All right, everybody. For Taylor, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you have it. There's another one in the can, but is it over? Is it actually over? Maybe it's not, because there's more over on Patreon. Taylor and I got into some very unexpected territory with this one. A lot of health-related talk, a lot of more nutrition talk this time, which isn't fully a first, but I think it's the first time we've dove this heavily into the topic of nutrition outside of this just tastes really good. It's something that's very, very interesting to both of us, and I think that comes through in the conversation. I think you're going to enjoy it. So if you'd like to support this show and keep all these ramblings going, you can go to patreon.com/tonemob, where for $5 a month, you can get access to all of those bonus episodes, and there is a lot. I don't even know how much. There are so many hours of talking back there for you. If you're into this stuff and you really like these conversations, you're going to like what is over on Patreon. So if you can support the show, that would mean the world. And if you can't, I totally get it. But please, I just ask that you could share this with a friend. Share this with somebody that you think might enjoy this conversation. Share any episode. Share your favorite episode this week with your favorite person. How about that? That sounds fun. All right, let's do that. All right, folks, thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for everything. It means the world. And as usual, I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, this is Aaron from No Simple Road. I'm inviting you to come hang out with Apple, Mel, and I as we talk with the musicians, artists, chefs, authors, and beyond from the world that turns us on. We're reaching into the improvisational music scene, the psychedelic culture, the festival world, and getting to know what makes the people tick that create those scenes. Come join us on the long, strange trip over at No Simple Road.
Hey, this is Scott from Fly on the Call. Each week I speak to a different musician, whether they're in an established band like Silverstein or the Wonder Years, or a band on the rise like Spanish Love Songs, Origami Angel, or Meet Me at the Altar. We discuss music and lyrics, the successes and challenges of being in a band, and more, as we get to the core of each artist. The show features musicians of diverse genres and backgrounds, so there's always a chance I'll be talking to your new favorite band. Listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com.